Hello, 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 and welcome to another slightly above mediocre episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get before we
If
get
the shoe
started,
fits.
hey, fantastic is a totally subjective term.
Yeah.
So
That's like when we say the most professional podcast on the internet. I mean, it's
Oh.
completely based on our own subjective opinion.
well, that's just criminally hyperbole.
Yeah, it's that is the epitome of hyperbole.
Yes. Well, this episode is covered by the BIPCOT no government license, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is bipcot.org. We're also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio in 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Therefore, everything said here on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion is entirely hypothetical. For the most
it's
part.
not likely to incite anybody to anything because you'd have to listen to us. So,
Yeah. Although, I will say we got our first 5 views on Rumble this past week.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! A whole 5.
A whole 5. I mean,
Whole
it isn't
5.
YouTube, so I mean, it's a step.
Yes.
I try to encourage everybody to, don't completely cut yourself off from YouTube, but give alt tech a little bit of love.
Alt tech? Oh,
Yeah.
alt tech. Alternative.
You like the MeWe.
Damn
Like
smart,
the MeWe.
smart firm or smart phrases.
You people and your dollar words.
I'm so fucking out of it, you guys. this is gonna be such a shit show of an episode.
That'll be different than in every other episode. How?
Well, this time I'm actually out of it instead of just like hide or pretending to be out of it.
Well,
we don't have a resident stoner either, so
we'll be trying to help you sound it out. Sound out the word. It's just you can do it. Road.
Somebody's getting punched. No. So where do we want to start tonight?
That's a good question. If I had read any of these articles, I would maybe have an idea.
I don't want to start with the snitching.
Yeah. In keeping with tradition, I made it a point to not have any fucking idea going into this what we were going to be talking about at all. So
there's a couple of these. I haven't read these exact articles, but I've read some similar stuff.
We gonna start with the truth being out there?
No, we have to save the UFO one. No, let's do.
Should we start by railing against Kentucky police?
No, I want to start with Somalia.
Somalia? Okay.
Yes, Somalia. This is
we're all supposed to be.
Possibly go wrong.
Where we are totally not podcasting from at this very moment.
Well, the whole reason we haven't moved to Somalia is because we literally would get drone striked if we went over there.
Yeah, if you don't like it, leave. Yeah, but then I wind up being the victim of U.S. policy. So,
so this is article from the Intercept. In the least wired country on Earth, U.S. military asks airstrike victims to file complaints online.
This is
God.
I love it.
There's that scene in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where Arthur Dent is chaining himself or whatever to his trailer because they're going to bulldoze it for the bypass and stuff. And he's like, well, if the guy goes, well, if you had a problem with it, you could have lodged a complaint at any time. The display or the plans have been on display prominently in the city hall for nearly a year. And he said, I had to go down the stairs through several rooms, and it was in the back of a broom closet that didn't even have a light. Well,
but they were on display.
They're on display.
See, the best part about that whole thing that scene is like 5 minutes later. Well, you've got to have bypasses.
Yeah, you've got to have bypasses. Well, I mean, and then the Vogons do exactly the same thing, where they're like, when they
Right.
announce to Earth that they're going to
That's what I'm
destroy Earth,
talking about.
and they're like, well, it's your own fault for not traveling to this other galaxy over here where you could have seen that we were about to do this.
Meanwhile, nobody on Earth had any freaking clue that this even existed.
So, yeah, in the least wired country on Earth, U.S. military asks airstrike victims to file complaints online. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I gotta get down to the
And
nuts and bolts of it.
The idea of filing a complaint about American foreign policy while you're in the middle of the war zone that America is enacting that foreign policy in, and just like submitting on a contact us page is just the most asinine.
Yes. Okay.
But it's the most illustrative thing you can think of when it comes to American foreign policy.
Yes. All right. To the article, it says the leaflet depicts an airstrike in progress with militants scattering as a missile strikes toward the ground. In the foreground, a fighter in a military uniform holding an assault rifle tries to flee. He looks terrified. The caption, printed in Somali, reads, quote, "Life is a gift."
But we're going to take it.
Which we will take.
On the other side, the same man is shown sans weapon and wearing civilian clothes, smiling and grinning at a child and woman with outstretched arms. Quote, "Don't play with this gift," reads the text. Another leaflet depicts a fierce-looking hyena menacing a goat above the text. Quote, "If a hyena becomes the judge, goats will not get justice." The other side reads, quote, "Be part of eliminating injustice by reporting al-Shabaab movements."
Wait a second. So they're saying if a hyena becomes the judge, the goats will not get justice. How is this not also applicable to U.S. domestic policy?
Well, we're not going to get there because that's not in this article. A third flyer shows 5 women and a girl standing together in front of the Somali flag. Quote, "Our security is our responsibility," reads the front side. The backside asks for information about Al-Shabaab, a Somali militant group. The 3 leaflets obtained by The Intercept via the Freedom of Information Act were part of previously unreported and wildly successful U.S. military program designed to gather intelligence from Somali civilians. The propaganda campaign aimed at a weakening al-Shabaab was so effective and produced so many defectors, according to the U.S. Africa Command spokesman John Manley, that it overwhelmed Somali authorities and had to be suspended. Manley did not provide the exact dates of the leaflet program prior to publications, but records that it took place sometime between 2017 and 2020. The program was so successful, they ended it.
Isn't that great?
Putting that out there.
Uh-huh.
The success of the leaflets, however, underscores the failures of another system ostensibly designed to engage Somalis. An obscure online portal they can now use to report civilian casualties from U.S. drone strikes.
Well, if you had a problem with the killer robots murdering your family, you should have lodged a strongly worded letter of reprimand.
How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow?
Okay. Quote, "The flyers make clear that the U.S. government knows how to communicate effectively with Somalis in areas controlled by al-Shabaab if it wants to." That's from Daphne Evetter, director of the Security with Human Rights Program at Amnesty International USA. Quote, "That the U.S. has not created an effective means for Somalis harmed by U.S. military actions to communicate their experiences and needs to the U.S. government suggests that learning about and responding constructively to the impact of U.S. actions is not a high priority for U.S. officials."
Gosh, whoever could have guessed? I, for one, am shocked to the core.
But the very first line of that paragraph, the flyers make clear the U.S. government knows how to effectively communicate with Somalis.
Oh yeah,
but
when it wants their help,
yeah,
right.
But when they have a complaint, we're gonna get to that.
It's the
if you'd like to provide us 5-star feedback, here's the portal to Yelp. However, if you would like to lodge a complaint, I'm going to need you to write a letter in calligraphy on the skin of a goat and
And just make
deliver
sure
it.
to include your coordinates on there so that way we know where to send the next drone.
Yeah, for more than a decade after the U.S. began counterterrorism airstrikes in Somalia, there was no mechanism for locals to report civilian casualties directly to Africa Command.
What good would it
For
do?
more than a decade after the U.S. began counterterrorism airstrikes in Somalia, there was no mechanism for locals to report civilian casualties to Africa Command.
So that, I mean,
last June, that changed when ARFCOM finally created a web portal to field allegations. But there's a catch, actually several. You need a computer or smartphone as well as internet access to communicate with ARFCOM. But Somalia is the least wired country on Earth, with just 2% of the people regularly using the internet in 2017, the last year for which the statistics were available. Where Al-Shabaab holds sway, there is almost no online access, and the group has, quote, prohibited companies from providing access to the internet and forced telecommunication companies to shut data services in Al-Shabaab-controlled areas. That's according to the U.S. State Department.
Well, yeah, because it's not like Al-Shabaab is known for its desire to make sure everyone can have a free exchange of ideas. All right, it's fucking Al-Shabaab.
The command added a feature to its website that allows it to be read in the Somali language. But in addition to access to the internet, you need to know the English word translate, and locate it on a tiny toolbar at the top of the webpage.
Oh, this is, this would be at home in like the farcical TV show, the Space Force. Right.
Yes.
Like where it's just that inept thing. It's so transparently to avoid you actually being able to complain.
But it's so so common of an occurrence for U.S. foreign policy. I mean, this is everything in a box. U.S. foreign policy in a nutshell.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if there were civilian casualties, we would have heard about it. We have a web portal.
Right. That maybe 2% of the population can.
And then as the Hellfire missile came in through my window, dear sir or madam.
The results of the initiative have been predictably underwhelming.
No shit.
ARFCOM has received roughly 70 responses over the last year, only 7 of which, according to Manley, were related to civilian casualties. Quote, 6 were about one incident where we were already addressing, and 1 was about another incident that we were already assessing.
We've already investigated ourselves and found that we, in fact, did nothing wrong.
Yes. The complexity of ARFCOM's online civilian casualty reporting process stands in stark contrast to the simpler mechanism used to turn Somalis into government boosters and informants. In recent years, Special Operations Command Africa, or SOC Africa, SOC Africa, began producing propaganda leaflets meant to induce members of Al-Shabaab to defect and encourage Somalis to provide information about militants. All are written in Somali and include local telephone numbers to contact authorities.
So, like Andrew was saying, if you're giving us something,
hold on, it gets even better.
I know.
Quote, those leaflets were produced by SOC Africa to inform populations of tip lines and influence local populations to use tip lines. SOC Africa produced 4 to 5 variations of the 8 different leaflets, each micro-targeted to specific locals and providing local phone numbers for authorities in the cities of Baswao, Galco, Misale, Mogadishu, or Wanalian. Some leaflets even provided a second number for people to call or text for assistance. So they can specifically target 8 different leaflets, 4 or 5 different versions each, to specific little micro areas.
Yeah,
but if you have a complaint, you have to find a smartphone or find a computer with internet access, know the English word for translate, so you can translate it to Somali so you can read it,
Mm-hmm.
and then type it out.
And and like when they say specific, like like obviously Mogadishu isn't that small. It's a decent sized city, but like the Bosaso and Kismayo are not large areas that they are targeting very specifically, and yet it has local phone numbers.
Yep.
For them to call.
For the tip line.
Yeah, for the tip line, they're able to target like specific like fucking neighborhoods, basically, for if you want to snitch on your neighbors.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah, but if you want to complain like you murdered my entire wedding party with your flying killer robot, that's gonna take some effort. Gosh, it's almost like they have an incentive for one and not the other.
Wouldn't have anything to do with the massive propaganda machine.
Oh,
that can't be it.
I mean, this has got to just be accidental ineptitude. There's no way this was intentionally done so that you couldn't actually use it. I mean, the government wouldn't do that, would they?
I mean, we all know that the government, trying to win hearts and minds, that they would never like accidentally have or purposefully have an oversight like this, right? Not once, not ever.
Not ever.
Can I just point out to all the people who are like, oh, why don't you move to Somalia if you like anarchy so much? You'll notice that the U.S. government is still operating and killing people in fucking Somalia. It's still not free, is it?
And still have been, or they have been actively killing people in Somalia for what, 30 years now?
I'll say since 91.
So 30 years.
Well, we first went in 89, 90, something like that, right around there, and then left in like 91 after the Black Hawk Down incident, kind of showed that we were not in fact invincible. And then Clinton pulled out all the troops out.
That's about the only time Clinton's pulled out.
That's not true.
No, yeah, it's not true. It
was on the dress. I mean, but she might have just spit it out.
It could have dribbled. It could have dribbled out.
Yeah.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Liar.
Says the guy sucking on a big ass cigar. Oh.
If you would like to apply to be my personal humidor, you too can write.
And he'll make it easier for you to get in contact.
Yeah, it'll be real easy to get in contact. If you would like to complain, I'm going to need you to go ahead and write in Aramaic on a clay tablet. You're then going to need to send that via carrier pigeon. At least I have a mechanism for you to complain. I don't know what you're bitching about.
The idea of using the online portal for this, isn't that, to me, it just further illustrates the hubris of the American government. Well, we're actively worldwide connected. Why aren't you?
Yeah, why aren't you? Because you keep blowing everything up, assholes.
That's completely unrelated, Andrew. You know that they are always absolutely certain that they never blow anything up that wasn't supposed to get blown up. They would never intentionally target infrastructure like that.
They just need to vote harder for a foreign president.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
That's what they need. Yep.
Somalia just needs to vote harder to get the U.S. president they want into office.
Exactly. They just their own fault for not voicing their concerns through the appropriate channels. I mean, if they just wait for their day in court. Oh, sorry, courthouse just got blown up. If they wait for their day in
military tribunal.
In a military tribunal. Probably in front of Al-Shabaab. We're just going to kill them no matter what.
All I'm picturing right now are the Vogans A Vogan in a U.S. military general uniform standing behind the microphone going, "But we've got to have airstrikes."
Yeah, we've got to have drone strikes.
I want that as a patch so
It's
bad.
your own fault for not going onto the website and reading English.
Yeah, on a completely unrelated and totally not entirely similar situation. Biden administration asks Americans to report, quote, potentially radicalized friends and family.
I have at least one liberal aunt who probably saw that and is like going, and eyeballing me.
I probably had the
like
same
like
thing.
your name's not already on a list.
Oh, I know. But
I
I'm just
know.
saying she'd still also report me.
I was thinking the same thing about my oldest sister.
Is she cute?
She's my sister.
We don't live in Alabama, dude.
That's why I don't have an opinion on the matter.
I mean, one thing, it was like Alabama or Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee. You know, most of the American South, really, if we're honest.
To be honest with you, Jason, you're not her type because you're, well, male.
Oh.
Well.
Hey, come 4 months into a long winter, you know, things can change.
Hey, you turned into a Wendigo.
Any ice hole in a storm. All right. President Joe Biden's administration announced their plan to create ways for Americans to report radicalized friends and family to the government in an effort to fight domestic terrorism.
I mean, none of us know anybody like that at all.
No, not at all. In a conversation with reporters, one senior administration official explained the importance of stopping politically fueled violence before it started.
You know how you could do that effectively? I have some ideas.
Well,
I may have a few myself.
Well, first you have to go onto this website of ARFCON, right?
You know, I would love to see a whole bunch of Americans go onto that website for AFRICOM and just start randomly putting in complaints about the airstrikes.
You remember when early, it was probably about this time last year, where Andrew Cuomo came out with the website and the phone number where people could call and to snitch out, you know, COVID people that weren't following COVID guidelines, and it got absolutely fucking hammered with dick pics. And,
oh yeah, I would absolutely love that to happen to the AFRICOM website.
To the AFRICOM or to this domestic terrorism.
Or to this thing, yeah.
Yeah. Quote, we will work to improve public awareness of federal resources to address concerning or threatening behavior before violence occurs.
Pretty sure people are pretty aware of the federal resources to which you are alluding there, sir.
Yeah. The official site of the Department of Homeland Security's, quote, if you see something, say something campaign to help stop radical Islamic terrorists as a domestic possibility. Quote, this involves creating contexts in which those who are family members or friends or co-workers know that there are pathways and avenues to raise concerns and seek help for those who have been perceived to be radicalizing and potentially radicalizing towards violence.
Here, I just want to point out, there's that wonderful meme out there. Who radicalized you? You did. Government.
Yes.
You did. You are the reason people are radicalizing.
See, but they're trying to spin it now since that blew up. Like, I'm seeing a lot of websites start, you know, like news articles start to try to add in, like, and try and like surreptitiously edit to add in he was talking about Muslim radicals, except that if you look at the paper that he specifically references from the FBI, that is not what he's talking about at all.
Homeland Security.
Yeah. Well, there's one. I threw it up in the chat thing. I feel like that was an FBI news article.
Yeah, Andrew's right. There was an FBI.
Okay.
be ideal with it too.
Biden began his presidency with a stark warning in his inauguration speech about the, quote, rise in political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat. On June 1st, Biden described the threat from, quote, white supremacy as the most lethal threat to the homeland today.
Never mind the fact that last summer alone,
We were both right.
Antifa and their allies did $2 billion with a B dollars in damages to cities all across the country.
The Biden administration said it would also work with large technology companies on, quote, increased information sharing to help combat radicalization.
Gee, I wonder if that means that they're going to reopen my Facebook account.
Yeah, we talked about this before. You know, when you guys both got your visits from the alphabets, that there was an article that came out right at that same time about Facebook giving a shit ton of information to the FBI and the names of a bunch of people that it had removed because they were in the redacted groups.
Yep. There's a reason why I've taken to, whenever I refer to Facebook, they are officially referred to as fascist book
or Fedbook.
Yeah,
this is
usually fascist book.
Specifically from that article, this little section mentions the DVEs, what they call DVEs, or domestic violent extremists. It says domestic violent extremists with ideological agendas derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, including opposition to perceived economic, social, or racial hierarchies, or perceived government overreach, negligence, or illegitimacy.
See, the very first thing they mention is woke culture.
Yeah, they have the economic, social, or racial hierarchies. Yeah, they specifically mention Antifa and the others, but they also mention militia violent extremists, DVEs.
But you know for a fact that they're not, especially with President Houseplant in place, they're not going to go after the violent extremists on the left because that's their agenda.
Actually, what's interesting is in this article it mentions too anarchist violent extremists, and it says DVEs who oppose all forms of capitalism, corporate globalization, and governing institutions which are perceived as harmful to society. I think it's interesting to say and governing institute, like they seem to not understand that not all anarchists are leftists, for one, which is a little annoying. But then on top of that, like that's fucking Antifa, right? Like you're talking about Antifa there, but they're not going after Antifa, are they? They're going after guys like us.
Well, right. You got to remember that once they're in office, they don't care about who they use to get there, right? Which is why they refused for so long to meet with BLM. It's why they're not openly defending Antifa and the protesters anymore.
Yep. Yeah, you don't hear any of those calls for extended violence anymore, do you?
It's also why they're not taking up the mantle of the police reform, things like that. Like,
you double down on that.
You actually saw like Pelosi. I think it was Pelosi was like, "Oh yeah, we're not defunding the police."
Yeah, because that was a bill that came up immediately after the new session started. Yeah, and Pelosi absolutely refused to even let it go to committee.
Yep, because once they're in office, they don't care.
No.
So
when you notice that
they'll stand on whoever they need to get power, and once they get their power, fuck everybody. And that's not just the left, but it's the right too.
Yeah, but I mean, like their supporters, you notice too, have like completely forgotten about everything that they whined and bitched about Orange Man bad. They've completely forgotten that all of that government overreach is not being addressed, and they're like just going, well, but I mean, at least he's not Trump. They're still harping about they're still going on and on. I see all over the online that they're still complaining about Trump, and it's like he's not been in office for quite some time at this point, guys.
They spent all that time arguing for police reform and defund the police, and they got a holiday and striped painted crosswalks.
Yep. Ooh, boy.
Well,
Woo, police reform.
and one thing, I mean, there are some cities that took it upon themselves to enact some manner of police reform.
There
But
are
the
cities that gave more funding to police because of the protests.
right, but I mean, like you to look at places like Portland, and they went ahead and they cut a bunch of money from the police budget.
Portland is still having almost nightly riots and protests.
I know, and
And you
it's not
and you
even, and it's
and you
not
don't
making the news anywhere
know.
because they don't want to. I guess they don't want to fan the flames. I guess, but
Well,
No,
because that would be
it's
admitting.
because it's not part of the useful agenda anymore.
Yep,
right,
that would be admitting that this is a legitimate complaint and not something that was just because of Trump.
right.
So they can't have, while their guy is in power, they can't have anybody complaining about people who are in power, because then that would be complaining against their guy, which they're not going to allow to have happen. But you know, the thing is that you're also going to, again, almost guarantee you have a lot of these authoritarian leftists who are going to support the shit out of this rhetoric about reporting people who are extremists and blah blah blah. And then they're all of a sudden, what's going to happen is the changing of the guard is going to happen again, and the right's going to wind up in power, and then they're going to use that exact same thing that's now been established to go after the leftist extremists, and
Yep.
all of a sudden now they're going to start screaming about civil liberties again.
Well, and even a lot of it now that the left is using to ignore leftist extremists and intentionally target right extremists. That was all actually laid. The foundation for that was laid by Lord Dampnut last summer when he deployed federal alphabeties in
to
Portland
Portland.
to snatch and grab suspected domestic terrorists out there. I mean,
Yep.
to be perfectly honest, after seeing what happened last summer with the alphabeties out in Portland, I am entirely surprised that Andrew, you and I weren't black bagged at some point since January 6th.
Oh, I keep getting followed.
Oh, I occasionally I catch them back there too, but they're not like eyeballing me constantly at this point. But
Yeah, if I go anywhere that I don't normally do, like if I go to work and come home, I don't really get followed. But if I go anywhere else, all of a sudden I'll be getting followed.
You'll notice them.
Yep. Oh yeah, I had a pickup truck that I took on a little ride down like 8 random turns the other night to see if they were going to be following me, and then doubled back and gunned it up an alley, and sure enough, they were just parked sitting there, and they had their dome light on, and so I could see the computer and shit inside the truck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, yep, that's what I thought.
So, all right, let's get back to the article. This is quote, any particular tech company often knows its own platform very well. That's the official noted quote, but the government sees things actually threats of violence across platforms. They see the relationship between online recruitment, radicalization, and violence in the physical world. We talked about this before, about how banning people from social media actually creates a vacuum and creates tiny echo chambers that are not openly monitored.
Yep.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, look at MeWe. Look at if you go on MeWe, you don't see left voices on MeWe at all. You don't see
there's a
much
few
pro-government at all. Yeah, I mean, there's maybe a little, but what you really, by and large, everybody on there is either anarchist or libertarian. They're all very anti-government. And it's an echo chamber. And like, now that I've been banned from Facebook, where do you think I am? Well, I'm on MeWe in the echo chamber of anarchist ideas. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
at least our anarcho chat on Telegram is pretty open.
Yeah.
Even if it does get annoyingly open sometimes.
Yeah. Occasions, like, shut up.
The Department of Homeland Security also plans to deploy, quote, digital literacy and digital fitness programs to help combat, quote, malicious content online that bad actors deliberately try to disseminate.
So here we're talking about digital social credit score.
This is the digital version of what they did in Michigan with that group of guys in regards to kidnapping Governor Whitmer, where
the one where it turned out that the FBI was actually the ones behind the entire plot and the other guys were just talking about it?
I saw another story about that, the headline, in one of the meme groups on MeWe, and it was the Spider-Man pointing at each other meme. It was the FBI pointing at each other.
There's like 8 Spider-Man. Yeah, I have that meme on my phone, yeah.
That guy's an extremist. That guy's an extremist. That guy's an extremist. That's good.
And they're all Fed boys. Yep.
Yeah, every single one of them's FBI.
I shared a Ammon Bundy post on Twitter, and then I had like 4 people start following me, and I'm like, 3 of you are Feds.
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
At least.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I guarantee you, based on the people that I follow on Twitter, like that alone would put me on an FBI watch list.
The official assured reporters that the
administration with YouTube monkeys to put me on a watch list. So.
The official reassured reporters that the administration's new strategies would remain, quote, laser focused on stopping violent acts.
Uh-huh. I'm sure.
Well,
promise, guys, we're superior.
This is a strategy that is agnostic as to political ideology or off the spectrum. What matters is when individuals take their political or other grievances and turn that unacceptably, unlawfully into violent action.
Okay, except the problem with that is you assholes in government have taken away the other 2 boxes.
Well, and the other issue with that is, think about this. Okay, they at the beginning they said, well, no, it's about preventing violence before it happens. And then later on they're claiming, well, we're not worried about you just voicing your political opinions. It's only when you actually start doing violence. But then you're not stopping it before it happens, are you? So it's either one or it's the other. You're gonna have to pick.
Yep. And honestly, they're gonna start. It'll take a large scale event to do it. I think no, it won't. I take that back. They're just going to start seeing people's rhetoric online and going, you know what? No, that guy said something we didn't like. Here's a black bag. Here's a one-way ticket to Cuba.
The official added that the Biden administration was taking the threat of domestic terrorism seriously and would direct the focus of intelligence agencies on internal threats. Quote, we are investigating many agencies of the government and resourcing them appropriately and asking our citizens to participate. Because ultimately, this is really about homeland security being the responsibility of each citizen of our country to help us achieve.
You know who's loving that statement right there?
Joseph Goebbels?
I say girls.
Yes. Because everything in that statement makes me think Gestapo.
Brown shirts.
We must be watching for the internal threats to the greater fatherland and the Reich.
Yes.
I mean,
and if you do not have the appropriate papers, we will make sure that you do not receive them.
Yes.
I mean, the ridiculousness of this. And again, I mean, like, they went from within one talk to reporters. They went from it's about stopping political violence before it starts to, oh, well, we don't care if you're just talking about it. It's only if you actually do something, promise. Well, but if you're trying to stop it before it starts, that would negate your assertion that you're not doing anything until somebody actually does something.
Right.
So you have admitted straight up that what this is a domestic spying program of neighbors watching neighbors, a la the Soviet fucking Union. And like, that's what this is turning into, is like neighbors denouncing neighbors, friends denouncing friends, right? Family members denouncing, and oh, you go to Gulag. And then a little bit later, oh, you also go to Gulag. Like this. No, that.
Yeah.
If you start reporting your friends and your neighbors, you are enabling, at the very least of it, you are enabling the government overreach.
Hey,
Right.
if you don't like this new domestic policy, you can move to Somalia.
and then
you have to
complain
deal with
about it on a website that you can't access.
Complain about the U.S. foreign policy instead of the U.S. domestic policy.
Yeah, remember a few years ago there was that thing that you can either be in the U.S. and complain about America's foreign policy, or move out of it and become a victim of it.
Yeah.
Yep. And see, with this, the part about this that the article doesn't mention is that as part of this whole redirection on fighting domestic terrorism, the Biden administration is telling people that are exiting the military that they have to take this mandatory anti-radicalization training.
Anti-radical, that'll work.
It'll work out real well. So they have to go through this.
If you fulfill your contract in the military, you come out either deeper into the indoctrination or like 95% against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, that's something that they're doing as part of the exit process now, or they're just initiating, is you go through this anti-radicalism training as you exit the military. And for some reason, that's supposed to not create more anarchists.
Yeah, how is that not? I mean, like, oh, here's your 214. Oh, wait, just kidding. You got to go through one more death by PowerPoint first.
Right.
Death
like
by
a 6-hour PowerPoint.
Put on the goggles. Lick this toad.
Yeah, it's
totally not MK Ultra.
Honestly, it'll probably end up more like this. Every single desk inside this classroom will have a pistol underneath it. And it'll be a 6-hour PowerPoint presentation, and half the people will kill themselves because they just can't deal with it.
There are so many points where, like, during some of those PowerPoint presentations where you're like staring at your ballpoint pen, like, how much force would it take to drive this into my brain? Can I do that as I sit here? And I just straight
with a pencil.
In through the neck, pull it out, and just let it spray on the guy next to you.
You're like, hey man, do you have a tourniquet? Why? No reason. Around the neck.
Just jab it under here. Nobody knows the difference. He just slumped over. I don't know what happened.
But trust me, this will definitely, I mean, there's no possible way encouraging neighbors to report on their neighbors could ever continue to encourage the descent into full totalitarianism. That's definitely not a move that the totalitarian states make at all.
No, it's not like Goebbels ever did that in Nazi Germany, or Stalin ever did that in Soviet Russia, or Castro ever did that in Cuba, or I know, hon. Kim Jong-un would totally never do this in North Korea.
The Chinese would certainly, I mean, Chairman Mao would have very much opposed this idea.
Yes,
it's the Khmer Rouge probably wouldn't have been big fans of it. It's
you know who also would have been not a very big fan of this? King George,
Mussolini, Franco.
Just get on the train cars and take your day in court.
Yeah, just wait for your day in court. Just wait for them to respond to the form you filled out on the website.
I'm gonna go enroll in an extra VPN just so I can connect to a server in Somalia.
And
complaints.
See, that's what. See, we just need to vote really hard to get a government into office that respects our rights.
Yeah, that'll totally work. That's been our problem this whole damn time, really. This whole time we could have just been voting harder.
I have my vote right here.
One of your family or friends is going to report on you, that's for sure.
What else is new?
I had a segue in mind, but now it just sounds really stupid, so I won't say it. Something about gun laws being racist, respect rights, Second Amendment, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. Capitol rioter indicted under rarely used gun law written to target black activists.
Oh, look at that. Oh, I know which one. We're talking about the Chicago 7 law.
No.
We're not talking about the Chicago 7 law?
No.
Nope.
Really?
A grand jury has invoked a rarely used federal statute to indict a Capitol defendant who repeatedly admitted transporting a weapon across state line, ahead of the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol.
I would just like to point out before we go any further, it's not illegal to transport weapons across state.
Hold on. That's where this
But
is
it-
going. The D.C. federal grand jury, in a superseding indictment returned Wednesday and unsealed Thursday, charged Guy Riffett of Texas with, quote, transporting a rifle and a semi-automatic handgun, knowing and having reason to know and intending that the firearm will be used unlawfully in furtherance of a civil disorder. I'm going to read that again. Transporting a rifle and a semi-automatic handgun, knowing and having reason to know and intending that the firearm be used unlawfully in furtherance of a civil disorder.
So this guy went to DC he had weapons in his vehicle. He went to DC from Texas.
Yes.
With the intent of likely having the intent when he got there of being part of Trump's rally as he was giving his more or less farewell speech. And then he went to the Capitol to continue with the protest. And then shit just got crazy.
Yeah,
so they're saying he had the intent to go nuts on January 6th.
This is the Rat Brown law. This is what we're talking about. This is the Chicago 7. Yeah, that was used against the Chicago 7. This is the Rat Brown law that we're talking about.
I'm going to have to look that up real quick.
There, you keep reading. I'll look it up.
Oh, Rat Brown law.
Yeah, Rat Brown. He was a Black Panther type dude. Actually, in your neck of the woods, Jason.
Yes. H. Rap Brown, civil rights activist, convicted criminal, 5th chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Black Panther Party, blah, 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 blah.
The Civil Obedience Act of 1968.
Yep, it was tacked on to the Civil Rights Act. Basically, the gist of it is if you go across state lines with the intent of inciting violent action or committing violent action, you are guilty of violating this law.
Yes.
So they're indicting this guy based on the supposed intent, but how do you prove that intent?
Oh, there's never been a time that wasn't tyrannical as fuck of the H. Rap Brown law getting used.
All right. Renfitt is the first capital defendant indicted under the firearm component of the civil disorder statute, according to a law enforcement official. The civil disorder statute was passed as part of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, championed by segregationist lawmakers intent on targeting black activists. In addition to being used against accused rioters in the wake of the police killing of George Floyd, the civil disorder statute has been used against more than 100 of the nearly 500 defendants charged in connection with the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Riffett was originally arrested on January 18th. His son, who had contacted the FBI about 2 weeks before the January 6th riot, told the feds that Riffett made threatening statements. He was ordered held until standing trial.
He was narked out by his own son.
Yeah.
Yes. Riffett, in a letter to ProPublica, bragged that the group could have taken over the U.S. Capitol if they had wanted to, and was recorded telling his son that he did bring a weapon onto Capitol grounds. He later bragged about carrying a pistol to the Capitol and telling an officer he, quote, better get a bigger damn gun, according to the federal authorities. Fucking so fun. Quote, I had my Spartan armor plates, my kidney plates, and my .40 caliber on my side. Riffett allegedly told members of the 3%er militia in a Zoom call on January 10th. Federal authorities also alleged that Riffett, quote, laid out his plan to attack mainstream media, Silicon Valley, and big tech during the militia meeting, described a social media company's facility in a nearby Texas town. There's too much to unpack there.
There's first of all, Spartan armor and .40. We're just gonna say that. And second of all, like, dude, really, you like just like openly laid out all of these big violent, like, you moron. Like, that's, you might
Yeah,
as well have
why?
painted a big sign like, arrest me. I am planning on being a domestic terrorist. And you might as well have worn that to the Capitol riots, taking selfies wearing it. You know, I mean, come on, you imbecile.
OPSEC means absolutely nothing to this guy.
Yeah, but
Yes.
see, these are the guys that kind of guy though. These are the guys who were utterly convinced that most of the police would be on their side. He's the kind of person that doesn't think the police are going to enforce gun confiscation. He's one of those people that's going to wave an American flag as they protest for freedom. He's one of those people.
Yeah.
He was utterly convinced, I guarantee you, until the FBI actually knocked down his door and arrested him, he was utterly and completely convinced that nothing was going to happen to him because he was being a patriot. Got news for you, buddy. They don't care. Like,
Yes.
I mean, almost every one of these Capitol writers who's gotten arrested has fallen under that category of like this. I'm convinced that, you know, that they talk about how they're convinced that Trump was going to stand up for them and that, you know, it was going to be a new era of patriotism in America and blah blah. And you hear all of this like flag wavy fucking filthy bullshit rhetoric, and none of them see the irony in the fact that as they were spouting that, they're being tracked and tagged and arrested.
So okay.
Hang on
so,
a second.
so
Hang
wait,
on a second. I
Go
have
ahead.
to bring this up because I'm looking it up here, and so this is called the Anti Riot Act, 18 USC 2101. According to what I'm reading here, and there are citations on it, rulings by the Fourth Circuit in 2020 and the Ninth Circuit in 2021 struck down portions of this 1967 or 1968
668. Yeah.
H. Brown law on the grounds of freedom of speech, leaving in place bans on inciting and participation in riots. So, I mean, he might have a defense based on current jurisprudence in the Fourth and Ninth Circuits.
Oh, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to work.
The Anti-Rioting Act was famously used against a group of defendants known as the Chicago Seven who organized demonstrations against the 1968 Democratic Convention. A federal appeals court later overturned the convictions, but didn't speak to the law's constitutionality.
Well, the one guy that was a member of the Chicago Seven wasn't even fucking there at the time.
For the most part, the Anti-Rioting Act is set on the books unused, but more recently, in a large part because of the federal government lacks a domestic terrorism statute that would cover much of the conduct of violent white supremacists, the federal government has tried to use the Anti-Rioting Act against violent neo-Nazis.
Isn't that ironic? It was written by a bunch of white supremacists, and now they're claiming they're using it against white supremacists.
Yeah, what I find really funny about it is just going to say that it was passed, it was ratified and attached to the 68 Civil Rights Bill by segregationists, which were largely what?
Southern Democrats, yeah.
Southern Democrats.
Last year, so back in the fall, a federal appeals court in Virginia narrowed the Anti-Riot Act, finding provisions of it were unconstitutionally overboard because the affected speech meant to, quote, promote or encourage a riot as well as speech involving, quote, mere advocacy of violence. Advocating for acts of violence or asserting the righteousness of violence was protected First Amendment speech, the court found.
Yep.
Actions meant to organize a riot or give, quote, concrete aid, in the words of the court, were still banned. Okay.
Ironic that a country that is born of anti-government riots has laws against anti-government riots.
White supremacists weren't the target of Senator Strom Thurmgood or Thurman. Strom Thurman, you guys know him.
Strom, everybody knows who Strom Thurman is.
Had in mind when the former segregationist presidential candidate co-sponsored the anti-rioting provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. On the floor of the Senate, he said the amendment was needed to, quote, protect society from the extremist element which advocates the destruction of our nation.
Isn't that interesting?
What
That
a
was
shock that would be Strom Thurmond.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that that was used by a Democrat back in the 60s about people advocating for civil rights, and now it's being used by Democrats in the 2020s.
Yep.
The government, Thurman said, quote, must be empowered to deal firmly and actively with these harbingers of anarchy who undoubtedly contributed substantially to the tragedies of our cities.
I love how politicians throw around the word anarchy like they understand what the fuck it actually means.
Well, not only that, but I mean the tragedies of the city, what, like Kent State?
Right?
I mean, like,
Gosh, I seem to remember a couple other tragedies. They weren't in the cities. They were rural areas. Does that mean that they don't apply? Places like maybe you've heard of it. It was in Idaho, Ruby Ridge,
yeah, or this one place in Texas called
Texas,
Waco.
yeah. I don't know if those qualify because those weren't tragedies in the cities.
And then this article goes on to talk about how Barr used it on a couple of protesters last fall.
Which is funny because fucking Barr was at that riot in 68.
Yes.
Clashing with protesters.
Yes.
Just want to throw that out there to anyone who's not as much of a history buff as I am. Yeah, Barr was at that riot in 68. That directly led to the A-Trap Brown Law being called the A-Trap Brown Law.
But,
good Lord.
Like, this law can apply to so many fucking things. Anytime that they declare a riot or they declare a protest unlawful, they can use this law on the people there if they have firearms. The Great Virginia,
if they have firearms that are transported across state lines.
Yeah, the Great Virginia Bigelow, of January 2020.
Yeah.
If they had declared that unlawful, there's 20,000 people there.
Yep.
How many of them were from out of state?
Yeah, any one of them that has crossed state lines, because it's a federal law, so to be charged with, you have to cross state lines. Anyone that was there that was from any neighboring state, West Virginia, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, any of those.
The guy that came down from New York with the fucking with the Barrett.
Yeah, he could have been charged under
I
it
actually
if they
come
had wanted
across
to.
a couple of people that live not too far from me that were down there. I mean, you had people from Washington State, Wisconsin, Texas.
Oh yeah, every state was there. Every state was
there. They had representation from every state in the country, including Alaska and Hawaii. And and they very easily could have done this and charged 20,000 people.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the danger of this law. And remember, like all anti-gun laws and anti-protest laws, for the most part, all of them, they are concentrated on taking power away from people that the powers that be do not want to be enfranchised. They're taking power away originally from natives, from blacks, from there are laws that were used to take guns away from Irish gangs in New York in the 1860s, 1870s. All of these laws are targeted at keeping the poor from being able to rise up, targeted keeping the minorities from being able to rise up and do anything and defend themselves. And ultimately, they're being used to keep people who feel disenfranchised at this point now, because they're suddenly waking up to the fact that it's the only two classes are the political controlling class and the non-political class of their serfs. It's being used against everybody now because everybody's being disenfranchised now. But the history of it is entirely racist and entirely shitty.
That's what I was just getting at. Is this bill, this Anti Riot Act, is literally created, literally passed as a racist law.
Yep.
That
is an actual example of systemic racism.
Yeah, this is a legit, like, and of course the woke mob won't say anything about it because it's being used against a pro-Trump protester, but
Yep.
that is exactly the woke mob types are who this was passed to be used against originally. And again, the bludgeons that you encourage politicians to create to be used against your enemy today will be used against you tomorrow. The more power you hand them, the more they're going to use it.
All right, let's move on.
And the more they're going to steal.
Because my blood pressure's going. Let's move on to something light. Pick number 2, 1, and 4.
3.
3. Okay. I have 4 windows open, and there's like. All right. So, vegan food company touting social justice lays off workers without notice. Oh.
This one made me laugh.
I think I put this one in the notes as woke company learns about economic reality or something like that.
No evil foods is what I see on here.
A vegan food manufacturer that used socialist-inspired branding lays off all of its production employees without warning or severance. No Evil Foods, which is based in North Carolina and claims that it uses, quote, food as a force for good, announced its layoff to workers on Friday. Employees expressed anger. Well, that should be ex-employees. Employees expressed anger and shouted, quote, screw all of y'all and fuck you, after Drew Pollock, the head of the human resources, told them that the company would not be paying them past Friday.
This next part is the greatest. This is the best part of this. This is
the best part of this whole article. You want to read it?
Yeah, I do. Okay. The reality of the situation is the company has essentially run out of money, and we're now really forced to make some really big, really difficult changes. CEO Mike Walyansky said to the workers, "It's coming down to whether or not there will be a no evil at all."
Walyansky confirmed that the company fired all remaining production staff in a statement. He said that instead of having in-house manufacturing, the company would shift to a co-packaging manufacturer. Quote, our goal is to be a significant force for good in the food system with environmentally sustainable, socially conscious, plant-based food. For a company of our size to survive... for a company of our size to survive in the hyper-competitive marketplace, the co-manufacturing model will be required going forward.
This is one of those moments where suddenly socialists realize socialism doesn't fucking work.
Right?
And the best part is it's a food company. It's a food company that failed because of socialist policies.
The commune has enough artists. Sorry, here's a shovel.
Exactly.
The company touts itself as a business that brings people closer to the origins of their food, quote, while addressing issues like food insecurity, economic justice, and climate change, according to the website.
Like people being unemployed.
Hold on. Some of the faux meat the company sells is branded with socialist things such as Comrade Cluck and El Zapatista, apparently named for the Zapatista Army of National Liberation, a far-left revolutionary political and militant group in Mexico.
The ones that have committed so many war crimes that, like, I've lost track. Those guys, the Zapatistas. Hey, look at
that. Quote, when we started No Evil Foods, it wasn't because we wanted to sell something. It was because we wanted to do something. So we work hard to create valuable connections to inspire positive impacts.
Real positive impacts. Sending everybody to the bread lines, guys.
You get it. But Andrew, in the words of Bernie Sanders, that's a good thing.
Yeah, because now people won't have as many choices in their non-meat, cruelty-free, pro-socialism foods.
But that plant was screaming all the way to the grinder, Andrew.
Some workers felt antipathy towards the company's leadership after the sudden announcement that they were now jobless. One former employee, Mike Rapier, said that the move smacked of hypocrisy.
Yeah, you think?
Rapier told the Huffington Post that the leadership of the company frequently spoke to the workers about their lofty ideas and tried to make them think of the work environment in a familial way. He said that all he got out of the way of the door was a leaflet about a job fair and a letter of recommendation.
That's the best. Oh, they're like, oh, we're for everybody's rights and economic justice, and we'll pay everybody fairly, and we'll be economically sustainable. Oh shit, none of this works, and we're gonna have to fire you all. Hey, here's a letter of recommendation, and here's a job fair at one of those evil companies that we say you shouldn't work for.
Quote,
If you
yeah,
wanna...
quote, we would have big monthly meetings about core values and family and respect and save the world. They preached all that stuff, and then when it came down to it, they were very, very cutthroat.
No, it's almost like...
Which, if you know anything about socialist history, you would not be surprised.
Yeah, like it's almost like
Bolsheviks.
All socialists are like that. Look at that. That when it comes down to it, they are far more cutthroat. Because that's the thing, right? Is that capitalism, in order to succeed in capitalism, you have to serve your fellow man in the most efficient way possible, a way that people want you to serve them. Socialism says, I don't care about anybody else. I'm going to do it this way. And look at what happens every single time.
Yep.
The news comes more than a year after No Evil Foods presented employees with the ultimatum that they could either work through the pandemic and receive a perfect attendance bonus, quit and receive a no severance, but have an option to return in the future, or resign with severance but no choice to return. They had 24 hours to decide, a demand that upset workers and caused the company to lose about 10% of its labor force. Accusations of hypocrisy also swirled up. The company embarked upon an apparent anti-union drive. Some workers pushed to join the United Food and Commercial Workers Union last year. No Evil Foods reportedly forced workers to attend mandatory anti-unionization meetings over the summer.
Oh,
but the left is the party of pro-union workers and all that.
Now former employee Colt Smith said that the layoff shocked the workers and said he wished he had been told in advance instead of being fired on the spot without any warning. Quote, they always said that we weren't people, we were family, and we were called teammates or workers, we were family members. You don't treat family members like that.
First of all, yes, you fucking do. Everybody does. Are you kidding me? Nobody can screw you like family can screw you.
Yes.
First of all, that should have been your first sign right there. Then they're like, you're family. Oh, you're really going to fuck me, aren't you?
Oh, my goodness.
This is fucking hilarious. Like every single thing that it's No Evil Foods. And by no evil, we mean all the evil all the time. Like, the thing is like, look at the UAW, right? The reason that the UAW was able to demand so much money and everything else is because they worked for very capitalist, high inventory, high income companies that work to be as efficient as possible and everything else. So they were able to demand all that and get it because these companies were operating on a capitalist basis. Then, of course, eventually the socialism sucked their lifeblood out like a bunch of fucking leeches, like it always does, and a bunch of them had to take bailouts, with the exception of, Ford. The rest of them did, and that's pretty typical of how this stuff goes. I mean, look at how many restaurants have had to lay people off in like Portland and stuff that were there, like the socialist living wage restaurants that wind up having to fire everybody and go, well, we just can't afford to pay everybody that. Oh gosh, you can't? Look at that. What a shocker.
And, I just recently had a very similar discussion with a bunch of idiots on, Reddit about the minimum wage and how they're saying Wisconsin needs a fair minimum wage of $15 an hour. It's like, okay, are you ready for all of these new people to join the unemployment line, like the frontline workers at McDonald's and all those people when they change all of it to automation?
Yeah, if it becomes that way, they don't have to invest in automation than to continue to pay a person. I'm going to just invest in the automation.
Well, I mean, the market says it will only accept so much,
Yeah.
of cost. Like you can't, you can't sell a $10 Big Mac, right? That's an economic reality because nobody's going to pay $10 for a fucking Big Mac.
Yep.
Right. So the McDonald's has to cut cost in order to keep the cost of their products low. Well, how do they cut costs? They cut hours. They cut they streamline. They bring in automation.
They don't hire people they otherwise would have hired. They reduce benefits. All of this stuff.
And that's what. And on top of that, you look at like right now, the Walmart closest to me, they have like 4 actual manned checkout stands. Everything else is self checkouts now. Yeah. Everything else, and it's all because they're preparing for the inevitable. They're going to push this over the top.
You know why Amazon supports a $15 minimum wage?
Because it's going to push people online.
No, it's because it will hurt their largest competition, which is Walmart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they can afford it.
Jeff Bezos actually said that.
Yeah, straight up,
in a Forbes article a couple months ago. He actually said that they support a higher minimum wage because it will hurt Walmart.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and won't hurt them because they can automate a lot of stuff that isn't automated yet. If that happens, because it then becomes economically feasible to do that. And that's the thing, is that these people don't understand. Like they look at some companies, right? Like they look at certain luxury companies. Like if you work for Porsche or you work for Ferrari, right? You get paid a ton of money to do what you do. Lots and lots of money. And that's because the products are incredibly expensive because they're a luxury good that is targeted at people with tons of extra money. And therefore they can go, well, we're going to charge a premium because you're not going to get this from anybody else. But if you're doing something that a million other companies are capable of doing just peachy and for cheaper than you are not going to be able to pay these people as much money because you simply have to compete with your pricing. You can't differentiate yourself any other way but pricing.
It's also why corporations don't support free markets. It's why they don't support libertarianism, because they can't handle the competition.
Yeah, I mean look at Trigicon and the way they freaked out about losing their patent, so that all these other companies could suddenly start building ACAPs.
When they lost their army contracts.
Yeah. Colt and basically Colt and Remington for the most part for a long time survived entirely on getting government contracts. So the moment they didn't have them anymore, they imploded rapidly.
Artex just cut all their connection to the firearms industry.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of companies.
They're the next one to go down.
Winchester had to cut out all of its gun stuff and go to nothing but ammunition. I mean, there's tons of companies like that that just don't do
faster, you bastards.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I don't know if you saw, but Winchester and Colt just both said that they don't see the ammunition shortage ending anytime soon because they're getting still orders faster than they can produce ammunition. God,
who was it? It was
I just saw another thing not that long ago where they said, or it was last week. I just saw a letter where Winchester and the now restarted Remington manufacturing, and it was one other manufacturer. I think it might have been Fiocchi. All existing orders on the books are jumping by another 5 to 15%.
Yeah, they have to raise rates. But I mean, that's economics. That's how supply and demand works. And this company has just learned this no evil foods in a very, very real way, that at the end of the day, there are a million other economically sustainable vegan bullshit fucking places that I could get food from for cheaper, which means I'm not going to buy from you, which means they're going to go under.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So on a quick sidebar, if you want to hear a really, really good breakdown of why ammunition is the way it is and why firearms manufacturers the way it is right now, and why there's a huge backlog. Phoenix Ammunition is out of Idaho. That's FENIX.
Oh, they're so much fun to follow on Twitter.
They did an interview with the dudes at the E-Militia podcast. EMILITIA, E-Militia Podcast, in which they talk about that and how much the backlog of primers and all this other stuff. It's a fantastic episode that made me want to cry because I'm broke and I don't have enough ammunition.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I haven't been to the range in a while, is like I can't afford to replace anything that I shoot right now. And even if I could afford it, at least 2 of my guns take food that I can't feed them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 300 blackout is worth its weight in gold right now.
it is extremely difficult to come by.
So you're saying my ammo can that I have is worth quite a bit of money?
Oh yeah, I got an ammo
skull
can
fuck you
right
for
there.
that ammo can.
Yeah, that's I got an ammo can sitting there full of 300 right now. That's worth an enormous amount, and like even 7.62 steel case is expensive right now, and it makes me very sad.
I saw steel case 7.62 steel case too low for 41 cents a round, and I got excited.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. I ordered from Palmetto. They had a sale, and I could get boxes at 20 for 40 cents a round, and I jumped on it because that's the cheapest I've seen it in a very, very long time. And it's full ammo.
We need it. We have to deal up because U.S. security says UFOs could threaten U.S. security, according to a Capitol Hill briefing.
Yeah, we gotta worry about them aliens. Why do you carry in the house Decepticons? I laughed. She laughed. The toaster laughed. I shot the toaster.
Yep.
Yes, UFOs could threaten U.S. security. Capitol Hill briefing. Just in time for Independence Day, Capitol Hill lawmakers said Wednesday that UFOs could pose a pressing threat to America's national security as the polls emerged from a highly classified briefing with the Navy and the FBI officials on the unexplained phenomena.
Just in time for Independence Day, huh?
Ahead of the release of a highly anticipated Pentagon report on unidentified flying objects before month's end, members of the House Intelligence Committee received a hush-hush sneak preview inside a SCIF, or Sensitive Compartment Information Facility. As the existence of extraterrestrial life, the lawmakers largely left the secrets inside the surveillance-proof room, declining to tell reporters what they learned. But some did voice concerns that UFOs, which may be espionage assets controlled by America's foreign adversaries, is a possible explanation just slightly less terrifying than the vanguard of alien invasion, which could pose a danger to national security.
How about international or planetary security? To me, that just seems like something we should maybe focus on if this is something we're taking seriously.
I'm just saying, if you need me to fly an F-15 up a spacecraft's ass, hit me up.
Boys, I'm
We'll just start calling you Russell.
Yeah, since I got abducted by them aliens back in 1974.
Quote, we take the issue of unexplained aerial phenomena seriously to the extent that we're dealing with the safety and security of U.S. military personnel or the national security interests of the United States. So we want to know what we're dealing with. That is from State or Representative Sean Patrick Maloney, Democrat in New York. Quote, I think it's important to understand that there are legitimate questions involving the safety and security of our personnel and our operations and in our sensitive activities, and we all know that there's a proliferation of technologies out there. We need to understand the space a little better.
I mean, just for a moment, like, consider how insane 2020 and now 2021 are, that like the government is just straight up saying that UFOs exist and they're concerned about them, and like no one's noticed or cares. Like, everyone's like, yeah, that figures. And
Representative Val Demings, Democrat out of Florida, said, quote, it's always about our safety and security. Our national security is priority number one. And so that's really the area where we were focused on this morning.
So let's just say, for example, if UFOs are aliens and say they attack China or Russia, we don't care.
Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat out of California, the committee chairman, implied that the briefing was eye-opening, but also declined to get into the specifics ahead of the release of the public report. Quote, "It was an interesting briefing. I did learn things that were certainly new to me, but I think I'm going to leave it at that."
The fact that that was said after a briefing on UFOs by somebody that high up is unsettling.
Representative Andre Carson, Democrat out of Indiana, who had been heading efforts on the UFO inquiry, said, quote, "We're looking forward to having a public hearing at some point. I mean, there's some national security concerns that we want to take into consideration." These people are not making me feel comfortable.
No.
There's national security concerns we need to take into consideration. What if the aliens are going to show up and be like, you all deserve to be free. You don't need these governments. They need to stop, and then give rebels like alien tech to help. And that's what their national security concern is. It's all connected.
I would love to take a crate of needlers.
I'm just waiting for the false flag Operation ET to happen.
It's the aliens' fault. Well, I mean, if science fiction has taught us anything, it's that if the aliens land and they hand out a book that is untranslatable in its title, and then you realize it says "to serve man," that does not mean that they are going to help us out. Don't get on the spaceship.
I'm just saying. 5G happens and we have an alien invasion. I know correlation isn't equal causation. But come on.
But I mean, I don't believe in coincidences either. So
hey, 2020 could have happened. You know, if what we know about quantum mechanics, 2020 could have been caused by an alien spacecraft coming into our solar system and having a gravitational pull.
Are bats aliens? Are they all secretly aliens? Is that why they're so weird?
Hey, maybe Harambe was secretly an alien and he was a U.S. ambassador.
He was trying to say, "Listen, kid, I don't have much time. You need to realize that."
Okay, I'm just saying, since Harambe went down, a lot of shit has happened.
Yeah, except that all we now know from what government has told us that if that War of the Worlds will never work out that way because all they have to do is wear masks and they'll be fine.
Right.
So.
I have a differing theory on Harambe. I think Harambe was actually he crossed planes from Planet of the Apes and was trying to warn us that this is going to happen.
Apes that's what together, strong. Blam.
Oh,
you
Bill and Ted dropped him off on the wrong timeline.
Yeah. Whoa. Oh no. Just let him go, Ted. Just let him go. This is for the best.
Donkey Kong fell out of the phone booth.
Except the way they mispronounce names, he'd be Harane.
All right, no, this is the worst. The worst one. Let's see. Representative Mike Quigley, Democrat at Illinois. He said, if I had to predict how the public will react to this one word would be disappointing."
It's not it's an adjective. That's not a verb.
If I had to predict how the public will react to this one word would be disappointing.
Would be disappointing. You'd make it an whatever. I'm not gonna quibble. Anyway.
Well, he's a politician. He's not a smart man.
Yeah,
I'm not a smart man.
If I had one thing to say,
it does not make me comfortable. I don't have enough rice or ammo stored up, and I'm still in the city.
I got plenty of rice and ammo. It's just a matter of I'm still kind of in the town.
Not only are you in the city, but you're in a city that's almost guaranteed to be targeted by aliens. I've seen Independence Day. I know how this works.
Well, I'm far enough away from San Francisco that I'm okay. I'm also far enough away from the Alameda shipyards, Oakland shipyards, that I think I'll be okay. Although there's Concord Naval Weapons Station is just over the hill from me. It's only like 10 or 11 miles away.
See, so you're just gonna die in a fireball from a big green laser, man. That's
Travis. Travis Air Force Base is across the river.
You need to just head to El Toro and grab an F-18.
To be honest, Andrew, I mean, we're not that. Granted, the military installations that are close to us are relatively small, but they're still targets.
Well, thankfully, first of all, Volk Field is definitely a target because Volk Field is one of the headquarters of the U.S. Nuclear arsenal, and that's in Wisconsin. So there's that. But I gotta say, no, this whole alien thing makes a lot of sense because I mean, this last weekend was the air show here, and not only were the Blue Angels here, but so were the F-35s. And seeing one of those do a takeoff
is the F-35, the Harriers, right?
The F-35 is the F-35 Lightning. It is the Joint Strike Fighter. It is the one that cost them like $200 billion to develop. Was grounded temporarily because of $1.2 trillion. Okay, yeah, it was grounded temporarily because of a screwed up digital helmet. It can take off vertically.
Oh, okay.
There's three variants. There's the F-35A, which is the Air Force version that uses a standard runway. There's the F-35B, which I believe that's the one that was at the air show that is capable of VTOL. And then there's the F-35C, which is designed for the Navy for carrier-based applications.
Yeah, and that thing, watching it take off is supernatural. Like, it looks wrong.
Yes,
to watch it take off the way that it does. That's got to be alien tech, man. I'm telling you. That's why it took so long and why suddenly it got done was because the aliens. I need string and pins for the wall behind me. Telling you.
Area 51. And my computer just laughed.
Anybody else? To be honest, as we're going through all of this stuff with talking about UFOs and aliens, anybody else waiting for Robin Williams to come back and go, Nanu?
Yeah, he steps out. Robin Williams steps out like after 2020 and 2021. I think if that happened, people would be like, "Yeah, it makes sense." Elvis shows up. Everyone's clapping. Thank you very much.
And if you don't like your alien overlords, you can always log on to the ARFCOM website in Somalia.
Your own fault for not. I mean, if I hear an alien show up and breathe a word about bypass, I'm choking him with a towel.
Make sure it's a wet towel. It holds up better.
Local residents say smart thermostats were controlled remotely in an attempt to conserve energy.
I read this.
Creepy.
It is.
We talked about smart before. Like, you guys are both in IT. You understand it. I'm construction industry. I'm also a conspiracy theorist. I understand it. Because smart tech is bad, people.
My wife, just because she raises a good point. We all carry around an active listening device.
Which I don't necessarily have a big issue with because it doesn't control me getting into my house or not.
No, but
starting my vehicle or not.
She's got a couple of Alexas scattered around the house, and she's got one of those Google Home things, but we don't have anything attached to it. Like, you can't sit there and say, "Okay, Google, turn on the lights." We don't have any of that stuff. But it's just really funny because, it's not uncommon for me to be sitting in the living room watching a movie, and all of a sudden Google Voice will suddenly pipe up and go, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." Well, I didn't say anything to you.
Catch this 10mm, bitch.
Start wearing aluminum foil hats around. Like, are you listening to my thoughts? Yeah, like it. I mean, but it's the thing with the smart tech too is even ignoring the creepiness of this in government and things. Look at those car thieves that go around with a signal booster for the RFID for the cars, where all they have to do is get it close enough to wherever your key is in the house that they can boost it enough to make the car think that the key is in, and then they can start it and steal your car. Just for personal security's sake versus bad actors that are non-governmental bad actors, you still should be concerned.
All right. The Electronic Reliability Council of Texas, that is RCOT, which everybody is angry at the moment, Conservation Alert urged Texas to conserve electricity this past week as part of their recommendations was to rise the temperature on their thermostat. Karen Rogers said her daughter was trying to do her part, but noticed that the thermostat kept being turned up without her consent. Rogers said the family's Galveston home became noticeably hot and uncomfortable. Quote, I really started investigating and thinking who could have done this, does an energy company control it? I found an activity log and it said it was an saving event was initiated by the utility company, so I was really just intrigued what that means. Turns out that smart thermostat owners might be enrolled in a program called, quote, Smart Savers Texas, which is operated by a company called Energy Hub in exchange for enrolling in a sweepstake. Rogers said she has opted out of the program and questions whether it really works. Quote, I'm not sure that it really helped with the energy issue because I feel like we were using more to try and get back down to a comfortable level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
don't energy companies also always tell you not to turn your thermostats up and down specifically because it takes more energy to get back down in temperature?
Energy Hub lists some of its clients as Centerpoint Energy, ERCOT, and TXU Energy. KPRC2 reached out to Energy Hub about the thermostats and obtained a statement from Erica Diamond, the Vice President of Customer Solutions. Quote, Smart Saver Texas helps support grid reliability by working with thermostat manufacturers and security dealer partners to sign up connected thermostat owners to participate in reducing energy use when the grid needs it the most. Thermostat owners typically receive an offer to participate from the manufacturer or service provider within their mobile app or via email. During a demand response event, Smart Saver Texas increases the temperature on participating thermostats by up to 4 degrees to reduce energy consumption and relieve stress on the grid. Every participant actively agrees to the terms of the program and can opt out of the demand response event at any time.
Yeah, but remember that this again is because of a sweepstakes. So what they said in really big bold print to everybody was, hey, sign up for this and you could win $1,000 or something like that. And so everybody did it without.
You could have free donuts and a
beer. And no one bothered to look at the end user license agreement. They never bothered to look at the terms and conditions. They never bothered to take a look. And so they got signed up for this thing because they went, oh, I get free stuff maybe?
Yep. Yay! This is how Stan ended up as part of the human centipede on South Park because he did not read the end user agreement.
Yep.
Well, yeah. They sewed his mouth to an Asian man's ass.
It's the same thing as smartphones. If you don't actually look at what your end user license agreement is on your smartphone, you actually give them permission to keep that mic open if they want to use the camera if they want to. That's you actually give them permission to do that by activating it on a wireless network.
Yes. Yep. Scary shit. Smart tech is not good for you.
And if they can do that to your thermostat turn, I mean, what would the implications have been if that was somebody who inadvertently signed up for it and
your social credit score is too low? We cannot allow you access to your refrigerator.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly like. I mean, well, imagine if this had been somebody who was misled by the, easy to miss implications of signing up for the sweepstakes and agreeing to it, and she had been a 90-year-old woman. In her home, and then they turn up the temperature, and then she dies.
Yep.
Because the temperature got turned up in her apartment, and they only turned it up 4 degrees. Well, but what if she had to have it set to 70? Because if she didn't, it was going to be 90 instead of just 80 degrees in there.
Yep.
I mean, just because your thermostat is set to that temperature doesn't necessarily mean that that's temperature inside your place.
Oh no, it's scary. It's scary shit. I hate it. I hate smart tech. I work in the construction industry. I've been around it. Like the same with like the smart door locks or the smart lights or the smart TVs. Like there are people that will buy a brand new smart TV just before the Super Bowl, and ransomware will disable the TV, right before the Super Bowl.
Yep. So you have to pay them money in order to. Well, look at even speaking of big equipment, like for construction, look at the computerization of tractors and things now, where if you try to work on it yourself to save money rather than taking it to an authorized dealer, they can remotely hard brick your tractor so you cannot operate your business.
They can do that to your vehicle.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, Teslas are cool and all.
If you pull up to the mechanic and the first thing they grab is a laptop, it's not a mechanic, that's a technician.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're not even called mechanics anymore. They're called technicians now. And everything's so digital. I mean, like I said, I love Teslas. I love the idea of electric vehicles because I think electric is really the way of the future. I have an electric lawnmower. I got to tell you, I much prefer an electric lawnmower all day to an old gas mower. There is no downside to this fucking thing.
Do you wear cutoff shorts and New Balance tennis shoes when you go cut your grass?
No, but I feel like I should. Like something in me, because I'm a dad too.
You have to wear cargo shorts and New Balance.
Khaki cargo shorts, maybe a lightweight polo shirt, like a golfing polo shirt. I actually have a couple of lightweight golfing polo shirts, and some white New Balances.
Sunscreen on your nose.
Yep. Yeah, I really need to do that, but I feel like it's wrong.
Gotta make Lindsay all wet. Calm down.
Yeah, I know, right? She's gonna be like, "Oh, look at that." But the thing is, you got to tuck the polo into the shorts too. That's also necessary. But like, I love electric. I think electric is the way of the future. I think anybody who fights against that is probably just plain wrong.
Well, you're however, a techno dude.
Well, yeah, but I mean, on top of that, it just makes more sense. It's more efficient. It works better. It's easier to work on, really. But at the same time, I love Tesla. But a Tesla can download remotely a new software update whenever. And who knows what that software update is going to do. I mean, remember when all the issues with the using the autopilot thing started happening, Tesla disabled it remotely in people's cars so they couldn't use it anymore. They took a feature of your car away at the push of a button. That's scary enough because it's your car. Imagine if they can do that to your house where they could just be like, "Oh, nope, sorry. No more heat for you. No more cooling, no more refrigerator, no more water, no more whatever."
Going beyond Tesla, I mean, you see the same thing with Windows updates. If you're running Windows 10, every time you push a feature update, like the most current one is 21H1, if you push that update, you'll notice that there are a few utilities that maybe you used quite a bit that now they've disappeared because now you have to either use their new iteration of whatever those are, or you have to go out to the Microsoft store and re-download the old version. And then even the old version that you re-download doesn't necessarily work right.
Yeah, we put too much control in other people's hands.
Oh yeah, and it's really scary. I mean, this is a really good example of how scary that could be, or that kid. Even on the slightly more innocuous note, that kid that ordered like however many like thousands of dollars worth of something with the one click ordering, talking to the Alexa, and the toddler ordered just a ton of stuff from Alexa. Like, there are some dangers there that you need to consider before you start investing too much in modern tech. I mean, not to be a Luddite, but you need to be cautious about it. As a tech guy, you need to be cautious about it.
Ted was not anti-tech, but he was anti what tech did to society.
Yeah, exactly.
Ted I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
We are more connected now than we have ever been to each other, and we have more vacuous relationships with everyone now than we have ever had.
So, all right, let's jump onto this last article since we're running out of time. This is the Kentucky one. Witness testifies Kentucky constable set her up in a drunk driving arrest.
This one is so fucking infuriating.
This one I actually read. Oh man, I was furious. I was pissed.
One of you guys want to jump in it?
I'll read it. Let me pull it up here. A Kentucky constable told a woman to drive her car even though she said she'd been drinking, then took part in charging her with drunk driving, the woman testified. Kayla Dobbs, 31, said the incident happened in December 2019 as she and three friends returned to Somerset from an outing in Lexington. Dobbs, who took the witness stand Wednesday in the federal trial of Pulaski County Constables Mike Wallace and Gary Baldock, said she and the others had been drinking alcohol but had a designated driver. The driver pulled over at a gas station in Somerset because one of the other people in the car threw up, Dobbs said.
Party foul.
Yeah, that's not kosher at all.
No. Dobbs said she was trying to clean up when Wallace arrived and told her they couldn't sit there and to pull the car to a nearby parking area. Baldock arrived about the same time, she said. Dobbs said she told Wallace she'd been drinking so she couldn't drive. He told her to move the car anyway, even though he'd seen her take the last drink from a bottle and put it in the trash, Dobbs told jurors. When she moved the car, Wallace flipped on the blue lights on his vehicle and approached her as if he was making a traffic stop, Dobbs testified. The constables called for assistance from another police officer who gave Dobbs field sobriety tests and had her blow into a portable breathalyzer. It showed her blood alcohol level was 0.114, well above the legal limit for driving, according to a citation.
That's drinking like a fucking pro right there. You hit a 0.114. That's damn.
You're having a damn good night.
Yeah, you shouldn't even be walking.
And a damn bad morning.
And a damn bad morning.
I mean, at that level, like, you shouldn't even be. There's no way he was not thoroughly aware that this woman was intoxicated.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
The citation said Wallace and Baldock identified Dobbs as the driver, said they pulled over because her rear license plate wasn't illuminated, and for failing to wear a seatbelt, and for failing to produce her vehicle registration and proof of insurance. Dobbs testified that gift cards and cash were taken from her vehicle after she went to jail. The attorney in her DUI case said in a motion that Wallace seized a $500 Visa gift card, a $250 Walmart gift card, and $264 cash from her vehicle.
Who has that much money worth of gift cards in their car? That's just a bad idea, man.
The charges against Dobbs were dismissed, but the gift cards and cash weren't returned, Dobbs said in the civil lawsuit filed in December 2020. In cross-examination by Wallace's attorney, Robert Norfleet, Dobbs acknowledged pleading guilty to falsely reporting an incident in Wayne County in 2008. The FBI investigated Wallace and Baldock over suspicion. They were falsely charging people and seizing cash or property. The grand jury charged them with conspiring to violate people's rights through improper searches of their homes and vehicles by taking money or other property from them. Constables are elected in Kentucky and have full police powers. Attorneys for Wallace and Baldock have argued they did not conduct unconstitutional searches or seize property illegally and are innocent. Norfleet said the charges are rooted in jealousy by other police over Wallace's success in making drug arrests and an effort to derail his ambition to run for sheriff. Baldock faces separate charges that he shot an FBI agent when the police came to arrest him in March 2020. He will be later tried on those charges.
Oh, truly acting like a cop who doesn't think that he did anything that wasn't him acting like a cop. He shot another cop who was trying to arrest him.
So let's go back to the original on this one. So they had a designated driver.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They're being responsible.
She, being the owner of the vehicle, they were cleaning up some vomit. And instead of having the designated driver move the vehicle, they had her, because she was obviously drunk, move the vehicle so they could light her up.
Yep, immediately. Yep. Immediately light her up.
Which is just, that is entrapment as fuck.
It's blatant.
This is the very definition of entrapment.
Yeah, this is like, if you were going to write a legal textbook and describe entrapment, this would be a way to highlight what entrapment is. That you ordered her to do that, so she complied, and then you arrested her for obeying your commands.
Yep.
This could not get any more clear cut. And then consider that these two cops were already being investigated by the FBI.
One for making false arrest claims.
Yes. So that he could steal things, and they're arguing, well, but we didn't steal anything illegally, and everything was within the law. And the thing is, the worst part is that they can even argue that their seizing of personal property was within the law at all, period. That they were able to just take things that belong to people because they charged them with a crime. That is a fundamental problem in itself. Like, this should never have even been possible. This incentive should have never existed for them to do this. But these are guys that have been doing this systematically to people for years, probably, that they've been doing this. And they're trying to argue, well, but she still deserves to be in trouble, and we still deserve to be able to take her gift cards and her money.
I mean, the charges were dismissed because they knew it was an entrapment case. I mean, that's the only other justification I can think of. They knew it was entrapment, so rather than risk the civil lawsuits and everything, they tossed everything. And then the civil asset forfeiture is somehow still a thing after there's no charge.
Well, that's happened. We've covered that on the podcast
We have
multiple
covered
times where they've arrested people or not even arrested them at the time and still seized money and valuables and things from them.
There was the one
civil asset forfeiture,
yeah, there was the one case with the guy who he basically had his life savings in a briefcase because he was going to buy a truck to start a business. Yeah. And they seized it because they thought it might have been connected to drugs.
No.
Explain to me how that's in the spirit of the Constitution there, conservatives, you pro-police motherfuckers. Like, you try and explain to me how that is in the spirit of your beloved magic parchment. That they can be like, well, it might have been from this, so therefore we can take it.
Now we still got a little bit of time left. You guys want to do one more?
Sure.
I got one more. I got one more in the queue. I didn't put it up.
Oh, so we definitely haven't read it. That's being professional as hell.
Yeah. Biden's nominee to head the ATF, who wants Congress to ban assault weapons, says he can't define them.
Yep.
I remember this.
Mr. I burned kids and women alive. The guy who fucking...
Well, he says that he was part of the investigation afterwards and he wasn't actually there. But he also claims they took down helicopters with 50 BMGs.
Yeah, that they didn't have.
Which didn't happen.
Yeah, like this is this guy. And he's going, well, Americans shouldn't have assault weapons, but I can't actually tell you what an assault weapon is.
Oh, when he's pressed on it,
a pistol is.
When he's pressed on it, the definition he gives is literally
anything
every
over
semi-automatic firearm over 20
that accepts a detector.
Everything, fucking everything is an assault weapon according to him.
Right here. This is an assault weapon by his definition.
It's a recent article. It says President Joe Biden wants Congress to ban assault weapons, and so does David Chipman, the nominee to run the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. But neither Biden nor Chipman will say what the term means, and their obfuscation. I swear to God, I practiced that word earlier.
It kind of sounds like you're George W. Bush trying to say nuclear proliferation.
That's unclear.
Proliferation.
That sounds like Biden trying to give the preamble. You know the thing.
You know the thing.
Yeah. Chipman, who worked at ATF Special Agent for 25 years and later served as a senior policy advisor for the gun control group Giffords, was repeatedly asked to define assault weapon during the Senate confirmation hearing last month, and he repeatedly dodged the question.
I want to point out real quick. I really want to point this out in case anybody missed that. This guy has worked for the ATF for a number of years.
He was a senior advisor on Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
the program that gave guns actual assault weapons.
Gave actual assault weapons to drug cartels in Mexico.
Yeah. Then he left the ATF after botching that clusterfuck
to work for a gun control group.
Yeah. Who is just a rabid gun control group. They're slightly less rabid, I think, than MDA, Moms Demand Action, but not much.
Yeah. Well, the Giffords are still. I mean, that's still pretty close to the Mad Cows. I mean, that's any difference is academic at best.
Yeah, given Chipman's long experience as both the ATF agent and a gun control advocate, his evasiveness cannot plausibly be ascribed to a lack of preparation or knowledge. Instead, he seems to be intentional strategy designed to avoid exposing the logic or the illogic of targeting firearms based on their military-style appearance.
Yep.
So Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican out of Arkansas, said, I have a simple question for you. What is an assault weapon? Chipman's answer not only was not simple, it was not really an answer at all. Quote, an assault weapon would be, in the context of the question you asked, whatever Congress defines it as.
That's not a fucking answer. I asked
And-
you how you define it, motherfucker.
And I want to point out to if there happens to be a FUD who trips over this podcast, I want to point out the fact that one of your favorite guns as a FUD gun owner, the Remington, I believe it's the 760 or the 7400, is a semi-automatic 30-06 or 270 rifle. Takes a detachable magazine.
That's an assault weapon.
That's an assault weapon under
the definition that what we're going to get to. Yeah.
Definition.
Yeah. Cotton goes on to say, you're asking us to ban assault weapons. We have to write legislation. Can you tell me what is an assault weapon? How would you define it if you were the head of the ATF? How have you defined it over the last several years in your role as a gun control advocate? Chipman tried a different dodge, referencing the ATF requirement that federally licensed gun dealers near the southern border report multiple sales of certain rifles. That program, he said, has defined an assault weapon as any semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detached magazine that holds above the .22 caliber, which would include the .223, which is largely the AR-15 round.
So yes, your Woodmaster, your Remington Woodmaster.
That definition is much broader than the ones used in the 1994 federal assault weapons ban, which expired in 2004.
You know, that definition also makes the M14 the world's worst battle rifle ever. That also makes it an assault weapon. It makes, even in semi-automatic guys. Yeah, the Mini 14, the M1 carbine, all of that suddenly now becomes
the PCCs.
Yeah, any PCC.
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? The Schnellfeuer, okay, well, not Schnellfeuer, that's a bad example, it's full auto, but the C96 broom handle Mauser, the later version that used the detachable magazine, even if it's semi-auto like the Schnellfeuers were, is technically now an assault. It's from 1890 fucking six.
And then the article goes on to talk about Feinstein's assault weapons bill, which is 125 pages long.
Because what could they possibly not bury in 125 pages?
Yeah, the general definition of rifles that qualifies as assault weapons, just a few paragraphs. It includes any semi-automatic rifle that accepts a detachable magazine and has a pistol grip, a forward grip, a folding or telescoping stock, a grenade launcher, a barrel shroud, or a threaded barrel.
And it only needs one of those.
Threaded barrel. Yeah, a thread, and it only needs one. A threaded barrel.
Barrel shroud.
Yeah, so that you don't burn your fucking hand on the barrel. You have to burn your hand on the barrel, and you also have to have no muzzle device whatsoever in order to not meet that, and no detachable magazine. Under this definition,
which is stricter than California's assault weapons.
Yeah, under this definition, there is almost not a single rifle sold in the United States today that does not fit this definition. There's almost no pistol sold in the United States that doesn't fit this definition.
Let's see. Lever actions would still be okay.
Only
lever action, slide action.
I know a lot of lever action, or I know that there's one, was it Marlin makes a lever action that has a 6-position stock. So that way it grows
you wouldn't be able to use a 6-position stock.
Yeah, because it's a lever action gun. For all intents and purposes, it's the same gun that has been made since the 1880s.
It just has the 6-position stock on it.
Well, because it has a 6-position stock on it, it now has magically, under his definition, the guy who's about to run the ATF, under his definition, that is an assault weapon, which is a made-up fucking term in the first goddamn place.
Well, most terms that politicians use are made-up terms.
Well, that's true.
Like domestic terrorism.
If you want to talk about, I can't really reach it, but if you want to talk about assault rifles, right? I got the blueprints for the STG-44 up there, right? That's an assault rifle. That exists. That term has existed for a long time, and that's a very specific definition about full automatic, select fire, intermediate cartridge. These are things that are definable. But when you try to ban things based on a weapons term, you're now opening that up immediately to just redefinition of the term. I mean, look at scout rifles, right? Like scout rifles, how do you define a scout rifle? Like, we know what the original definition is, but do you still define it that way? Because there are a lot of guns sold as scout rifles that may not necessarily be scout rifles, and guns that aren't sold as scout rifles that might be scout rifles. And you're opening it up to that movement, that slider of where you put those terms very, very massively. I mean, even bullpups, the book that came out of Headstamp Publishing recently about the British bullpups, it even has to define bullpup and then violates its own definition later in the book because it's like, well, technically, I think I call this a bullpup still too.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't fit that definition, you can't use cosmetic things, and you can't use, general handling to define a weapon.
Yeah, racing stripes don't make Pintos faster.
Exactly. It doesn't alter things. You can't, look at how many definitions in anything that can be moved around. I mean, even cars, the terms get moved around constantly.
I think that's technically legal because it doesn't have a detachable box magazine.
Except it has a bayonet.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got a bayonet lug on it.
No, it actually has a bayonet. I just have it taped down.
Oh yeah, well yeah,
so it doesn't rattle.
Yeah, so
but I mean, because this is a bolt action Mosin Nagant. I mean, 5-round internal magazine.
But it's not a detachable box magazine.
And it's not even detachable. Because it has this bayonet right here that I can't move because I have it taped down.
Otherwise, it like really likes to pop out when you're.
It rattles all over the place.
All right.
I mean, this is an assault weapon.
Yeah,
under
according
this
to him.
Lunatic's fucking definition.
It's an assault weapon. Oh yes, as we all know, all of the dangerous, crazy shooters out there running around with their Mosin Nagants.
For the most glorious people's revolution, comrade.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here, you guys. Come on.
Buy Derica's book.
Buy Derica's book. Buy her crochet pattern. Link in the description.
Yes.
Andrew,
use my discount codes if you want to care for your beard like a Viking. Make sure that you use code Inked Anarchist 15 when you're on thebeardstruggle.com. Get yourself 15% off of all of their cool stuff. They got beard masks, they got beard straighteners that are cool. They got all sorts of stuff to care for your beard in the most efficient, most glorious way possible. They have tons of scents. Every single one of them is fantastic. And of course, it's sponsored also by, or talked about by my fellow beard Viking, Thor, right? Half Thor Bjornsson. He's also a beard Viking. Also, make sure that you use the code InkedAnarchist25 on either AvantiCreo.com or ShopValerio.com. Either one of those, you can get sunglasses, you can get watches, all sorts of cool accessories, streetwear, hats, the works. And they're pretty cool. They're all designed by fashion designers, and you can get them for much cheaper and support me at the same time by using code InkedAnarchist25. Also, be sure to check out our boy Dave over at Poppins Patches. He makes some awesome patches. We all have a bunch of his patches. They are fantastic. I've given a bunch of them away. They're high quality. They're cool designs. He's always coming up with new stuff. He takes commissions. I'm probably going to hit him up for a commission for the podcast at some point so he can make us one. Actually, the one that I did that looks like the stripper with the stripper logo, and then it's like the Hustler, the old school Hustler logo font on there. I think I might have him make a patch out of that. But definitely make sure that you check him out. Check out RTA Magazine. They're doing great things over there. Really interesting stuff, especially if you're new to anarchism. That's something that you want to start reading because it will help you understand things even better from the perspective of somebody who embraces freedom.
All right.
Don't forget. Hang on. Don't forget out there on MeWe, as Andrew and I are both over there. There is the Inked Anarchist Hootenanny Roundup is back over there.
Yep.
As well as we have a page, Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion. You can also find us now on Rumble if you just want to get the hell away from mainstream tech like YouTube. or any of the other major
Facebook, in the case of
podcasts,
me.
Facebook and all those, you can come find us over there. There will be a channel link in the description.
Yep, search for us. We'll have links for it because searching can be a little clunky on MeWe. It's still, an independent thing and stuff, so it can be a little hard. But search for us, and the great thing is Hootenanny Roundup 2 on MeWe will not be taken down because the runner of MeWe will never censor it. He pledges right away when you sign up for it, he will never ever censor content that is controversial.
Oh, yes. On that note, going once, going twice.
Nah, you're good.
Okay, good. This has been another fantastic-ish episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion.
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Remember, the truth is out there.